Good evening. This is Rudy Giuliani, and this is the Rudy Giuliani Show. Excuse me. On Lindell TV and also on X, and who knows, any number of other places, but those are the two main ones. Behind me, by the way, is the view from our balcony where we often broadcast, and will be hopefully on Monday. We're waiting for a little more light. There would be light there now, but about halfway through the show, what you see behind me is all black. But now we went ahead and we have a nice live film back there. So you'll see the trees moving, and at some point you'll see an airplane going over that will be trying to stay out of the way of Mar-a-Lago, where at some point tonight, the president, I believe, will land. I don't know that we'll be on when he lands, but if we are, we'll start cheering, okay? And it would be, you would see it over that sky there. I will not tell you, of course, I will not tell you when it's there until it's over, nor will I tell you the route. And also, I don't know the route. They change it. Smart, right? I mean, there are only a couple that they can use, although they get pretty innovative. So, I've been here quite some time. Also, all during, not only I've been sitting here all this time, but I've been living here for quite some time, permanently starting at the beginning of the year, but off and on for the last 20. And I think I know all the routes. And I remember when he was president for the first 4 years, all the routes that they come in on, and how they, I mean, it's an endless number of variations they do. And it's quite interesting. I mean, how they do it. And of course, I did some of that during the Trump, during the Reagan administration. So it's sort of like brings me back to old times. Well, today brought me back to old times, big time, because the president was in my department. I used to consider it mine. I worked there forever, and at the lowest level and pretty much the highest level. Even was acting attorney general for some time. So today he went to the Justice Department. The left-wing media, some of them, acted like this was interfering with Justice Department independence. And give me a break. Interfering in Justice Department, you can't tell that to me when they broke into my house on the orders of Garpupel. I keep forgetting the name of the Attorney General. Hopefully, he will not have a place in the Justice Department annals. They always put up pick photos of the prior AGs, and I see that Pam Bondi has Robert F. Kennedy's photo, which is one of the most interesting, actually. Photo. Did he use a photo? I think he may have. So I may be actually right. It isn't a portrait; it's a photo. I can't remember exactly. I saw it quickly when Kash Patel had a picture taken there with her, and there was Robert F. Kennedy right in the background. One of my heroes. So, and we can go into that some other time, but one of my heroes. I mean, certainly as an attorney general. Wow, very good attorney general. The president, they acted like this was the first time a president had gone to the Justice Department. When I was Associate Attorney General, President Reagan made several trips to the Justice Department, including one very similar to this near the beginning of the administration, to give us a pep talk on how he wanted us to work very, very hard to assist the cities and the states, because even though it wasn't our primary jurisdiction, he wanted us to help as much as we could on reducing murder and violent crime. And indeed, we established a task force on violent crime that I kind of directed, and was chaired by James Q. Wilson, a very, very, probably the greatest criminologist of our age, and the governor of Illinois, Governor Thompson, who was a very, very exceptionally good U.S. attorney before he became governor. And their report turned out to be pretty much the program on everything we did to reduce violent crime for the next 20 years, including the things I did as mayor. That's where you get the broken windows theory, That's where you get the increase in police. The only thing they didn't predict was CompStat, which we developed in New York with Bill Bratton and his Commissioner Maples, his very able assistant. But other than that, just about everything else we did, including the career criminal program, that was a James Q. Wilson original thesis, as I said, the broken windows theory, which had been attempted in smaller cities before New York, had been quite successful in smaller cities. But of course, all the liberals and all of the geniuses that now complain about tariffs and complain about this and complain about that would never work in a big city. Never work. And New York couldn't be governed. That was a book written of that title 20 years before I was mayor, and a book written about 3 years before I was mayor. New York cannot be governed, except I governed it. Very much, history kind of repeats itself, right? So President Trump was at the Department of Justice today, very much like Ronald Reagan was there, dealing with the biggest issue of his time, violent crime, and one that overlaps, drugs. But the biggest issue of President Trump's time with regard to the Justice Department is the way in which it was probably corrupted more than it has ever been in history by the Democrats, going back to Holder and Obama, where Holder proclaimed that he was the president's wingman. Now, that should have resulted in all kinds of horrified yelling and screaming from the press that did some yelling and screaming that President Trump just went there today. It also should have had our bar associations, most of which suck. Sorry, but they do. And I will not go on and tell you what they suck on. Particularly the big ones in the big cities of the Democrats, like the two that disbarred me, New York and Washington. They're sort of lawyer lobbyists of the Democrat left-wing ideology. They oppose conservative judges. They allow completely unfair proceedings against people who support Donald Trump. And they, of course, let some of the worst scoundrels in the legal profession just float on and continue because they're one of the buddies, particularly here in Washington. I mean, it could just as easily be the lobbyist bar association or living off the big tit bar association, the government. So Donald Trump was there to right the ship in the Justice Department. Now, when you see this, it's going to look like he's at it, because I know Ted thought this. It's going to look like he was at the place where the Attorney General usually gives press conference. That's true, he was. But you don't get a picture of it, unfortunately, because the prevailing press has no sense of grandeur or beauty or whatever. It's in a beautiful hall called the Hall of Justice. It's surrounded by statues, particularly as you enter, of the great lawmakers, going back to Hammurabi, Moses, 10 Commandments, right? Napoleon, the Napoleonic Code. I don't remember which Roman emperor, but of course the Napoleonic Code was a redefinition of Roman law. Maybe it's Marcus Aurelius. Maybe. That I don't remember. And this place that you're looking at is the place where all of the officials of the Justice Department are sworn in, where the Attorney General often addresses the Justice Department, or various programs are held on crime or antitrust or whatever. It's a beautiful, beautiful auditorium. And way back in 1981, I was sworn in as Associate Attorney General right there at that spot. So why don't we listen to the president, because this was a very important thing for him to do. And it would have been a neglect of his responsibility to make certain that the laws are faithfully executed, not to go there and give them a charge as to what he expects. That is very different than intervening in an individual case, such as Obama did when he said that Hillary Clinton was innocent, or Biden did when he said that his son was innocent. Now, that was without any criticism. What President Trump did today is completely consistent with the fact that the president runs the Justice Department for policy matters. He really runs it for anything he wants to run it for. But wisdom and honesty and ethics would dictate that he'd leave prosecutorial decisions alone. And I know during his first term, he was very scrupulous about that. But he should not leave policy decisions alone because he executes the will of the American people. There are many things the Justice Department could spend its time on. This recent election has given us an indication of what the American people want the Justice Department to spend its time on. And the Justice Department, like any other department of government, to the extent that it doesn't violate due process and the law, should follow the will of the people. They want the Justice Department, I think, to stop targeting Catholics and little old ladies who pray outside of abortion clinics and treat them like they're organized criminals, and start going after the terrorists, the gangs, the new gangs that were introduced by Biden, like Trans Daragua and M13 that were enriched by him, the terrorists who were permitted in this country by Biden. And that's what he's doing. And also to cut it out, to stop using the Justice Department and the FBI as if it were, the secret police in Soviet Union or Nazi Germany, or that work for the benefit of protecting Joe Biden and his crooked family. And also, used leg irons on Peter Navarro and leaked the arrest of Roger Stone, which is a firing, if not prosecutable offense, completely ignored. Wanted to act like a law office and a law enforcement office again. So let's listen to them.
They knew it so well. They spied on my campaign, launched one hoax and disinformation operation after another, broke the law on a colossal scale, persecuted my family, staff, and supporters, raided my home, Mar-a-Lago, and did everything within their power to prevent me from becoming the President of the United States. With the help of radicals like Mark Elias, Mark Pomerantz, and these are people that nobody's ever seen anything like it. So many others, but these are people that are bad people, really bad.
Yeah, these are people that destroyed our republic. And they're not just bad people, Mr. President. I have to go a little further than that. These are people that, although it doesn't fit the technical definition of traitor, they are, and they're not entitled to be Americans. What they tried to do is they successfully ripped apart one of the greatest glories of our republic, which is our system of justice. And they turned it into a Democratic firing squad. For the first time in our history, a president of the United States prosecuted his predecessor. Ever before. Never happened. Just the mere fact that it never happened has to tell you it was wrong. And the things he was prosecuted for, absolutely none of them is there universal agreement that even if true, they were criminal. Not a single one. I don't have to go through all of them with you. As to each one of them, there is either clear legal authority that it was not a crime, or it's a highly debatable application of completely distorted legal theories, one of which was reversed by a bipartisan Supreme Court on Blackjack Smith. I say Blackjack Smith because A.G. Garfunkel, whatever the hell his name is, picked by far the most unethical prosecutor he could find to handle the case. It's outrageous. This was never, reported. I mean, I reported it, and Steve Bannon reported it. I mean, for that, he went to jail, and they tried to take all my property away from me and destroy me. They did. You think I think the cases against me were all, and that they weren't funded by Biden and carried out by Biden's lawyers? One of them was Biden's law partner. I mean, they may think that the American people are stupid. They're not. They may think it, but we're not stupid. I know exactly what they were doing. All those prosecutions and all those cases, including the ones against me, were directed right out of the White House. not by him, by the Wizard of Oz, who's ever behind the curtain. Because that guy, when he had a brain, didn't have much of a brain, and when he got demented, it was nothing. There was. He was working on like about 5 brain cells for most of his life, and near the end, he was down to none. Do we have anything else from the president?
Of the past, Americans like Wyatt Earp, Elliot Ness, Frank Hammer, Rudy Giuliani. Rudy Giuliani had to suffer greatly, greatly. He's the greatest mayor in the history of our country. He had to suffer greatly.
Every once in a while, the president exaggerates. But thank you, Mr. President. That was very, very nice. And you couldn't have done it in a better place. He did it. He did it on Sunday. Almost exactly the same thing, except it was a private group at Mar-a-Lago.
It was a whole
Right.
room.
No. I mean, but it was private in the sense that it was
Oh, it wasn't on
not
camera.
that. But that is a very.
lunchroom, though. It was the full.
I don't know that the president knows that is a very sacred place where he did it. That podium where I became the third-ranking official in the Justice Department under, up until now, the greatest president of my lifetime. He's beginning to challenge that. I'll tell you, particularly even in the last couple of days, some of the heroic things he's done. I'm going to point out one very, 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 very shortly. I'm disappointed that Putin said no, qualified no. I do agree with the president and the secretary. I don't know if you saw the secretary's remarks after the G7 in our 51st state, Canada. And they put a good gloss on it. It reminds me of the Bay of Pigs. Of course, you know what they'll do with Trump? They'll say, oh, my God, he's caving into Putin. It is accepted common sense in foreign policy, probably exemplified best as an example for those who study foreign policy by the actions of John and Robert F. Kennedy during the Cuban Missile Crisis. That where a foreign leader, when you're trying to get him into a situation where you're trying to make peace and not war, and there are 2 interpretations of what he said, you give it the interpretation that leads to peace. So when Kennedy and Khrushchev almost went to nuclear war over bringing nuclear warheads to Cuba, and Kennedy said if the ship went any further than a certain point, there would be nuclear, that he would have to strike back massively because he wasn't going to allow nuclear warheads 90 miles from Florida. And Khrushchev didn't answer him. And then Khrushchev sent, in a period of time, short period of time, he sent two different messages. Oversimplifying, one was yes and the other was no. And Kennedy turned to his brother Robert, as described in many biographies, turned to his, and in television shows done about this, turned to his brother Robert and said, what do we do? He said, well, pick the good one. And they took a good one, they put it out, and they said it's settled. Ship turned around and went back to Russia. They gambled. Their theory was that there were 2 factions in Moscow then, the people that didn't want to go to nuclear war and the nuts who really thought maybe they could get an advantage out of it. And they thought if they picked the right one, Khrushchev would just go along with it, which he did. So here you've got Putin saying it's a good idea, but there are a lot of details that have to be worked out, and we prefer like a complete peace, not a ceasefire. But we want peace. So you pick up on the we want peace, and we got to negotiate it instead of saying, hey, creep, end it. In which case you're probably going to set the negotiations back the way the dumb little jackass in Ukraine did. Now, he's a really dumb jackass because had he agreed a week or whatever it is, a week and a half ago, we'd be one more week into this. I can't be sure of this, but I really do think that his creating daylight between himself and the United States for a period of time by the arrogant way he treated the president and vice president. But beyond that, with his extremely irresponsible attitude toward peace when his people are getting slaughtered, he gave Putin extra incentive to take Kursk back. I mean, Putin, at a certain point, I believe Putin was accepting of the fact that he was going to have to deal with Ukraine having Kursk. So I don't know if it's 8 months ago or a year ago, Zelensky engaged in the controversial action of sending Ukrainian troops over the border into Russia, very small, 30 miles, and took the region of Kursk, which is described as somewhat bigger than the state of New Jersey. But it's symbolic. No one's invaded Russia since the Nazis. No one's successfully invaded Russia since the Nazis. They have internal problems. He has clearly taken sovereign Russian territory, and it's under his command. If you want to look at the map, you can take a look up there. You can see where. Now, if you see that blue area, right? That blue area is the area that was taken by the Ukrainians. And now the dark blue area has now been taken back by the Russians in the last several days. And yesterday they took that city, which is the main city in Kursk, Sudza. If they get a little more time, they might well throw all of the Ukrainians out, in which case Ukraine not only has less cards than he had when he went in to see Trump, he'll have no cards, which he would have held had he acted more decisively. What his motivations are, anyone knows. Are they for the best good of the Ukrainian people? Clearly, absolutely not. He would not have let all of that money sit there under his watchful eye that he could regain for the Ukrainian people, as against all the criminals and oligarchs who have stolen it over the years, if he really cared about the people of Ukraine. But he is one of many of these oligarchs, and he's the product of them, who basically doesn't give a damn about the Ukrainian people. In fact, it only seems like Donald Trump does. The rest of them don't seem to care who they kill. I mean, Zelensky had to be brought into peace by, twisting his arm and banging him over the head. He was just as content to let this war go on for another couple of years. That was his first statement when he left the White House. But the money would keep flowing to all the people that he's got to take care of. Remember, it's one of the most corrupt countries on earth. Nothing has altered that. That's a distinction between their good people. Their good people are victims. It's like in Iran. The people of Iran are wonderful people. They're victims of a maniac, theological dictator. Well, this country is the victim of continuous oligarchs who steal. They don't just steal. They steal hundreds of billions of dollars, which takes the food out of the mouths of the Ukrainians and starves them. They don't give a shit for the Ukrainians. They give a shit for money. And Zelensky is one of them. Has been one of them, is one of them, is sitting on criminal evidence of incredible levels of crime, and the kind of crime that would allow you to recover money for your good people of your country, which is why I know he's a creep. Which doesn't make Putin any better. Putin's worse. The only person here fighting for the war to end and stop killing each other is Donald Trump and his administration, because he seems to be the only one with a conscience. So Putin has said no for now. I think Trump and his people are keeping the lines of communication open with him. I think all weekend will be spent trying to pound Putin. I think if that doesn't work, if the negotiations don't work, you'll start to see very, very aggressive actions taken against Putin. And I think the hope is that Putin is smart enough to push it as far as he can without having that happen. But he's playing for time because he wants to take that blue area you see, okay? And he wants to cut. You see the light blue area and the dark blue area. The dark blue area, Russia has taken back. The light blue area, the minute he takes that back, we get a ceasefire. Unless Trump can stop him earlier. That's what it's about, in my view. And I probably know Ukraine as well as any of them, if not better. But I'm pretty certain that I'm right about this. And I'm also pretty certain that this could have been over a week ago. And this would not have happened. He turned out to be a lot more successful there than he thought he would be. Putin got lucky. Putin 3 times tried to do that and failed. In fact, he had North Koreans killing each other rather than killing the Ukrainians. He must have gotten rid of the North Koreans or killed them all or something. But we'll be back right after this message.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
Tired of volatile stocks and tiny dividend yields? Here's something different. Imagine collecting steady monthly income from America's richest oil fields without owning a single oil stock. While everyone else stresses about the market, you could be earning passive royalty income month after month. This unique investment has nothing to do with drilling, exploration, or operations. You simply collect your share of the profits when oil companies pump oil. The Oxford Club's Mark Lichtenfeld has found what he calls the perfect income investment, a unique oil royalty opportunity that's still flying under Wall Street's radar. And you can get started with just $25. Head to RudyOilBoom.com now to discover more. That's RudyOilBoom.com. Stop worrying about the market and start collecting oil royalty checks instead. Welcome back to the Rudy Giuliani Show on Lindell TV and X. And I believe we have a report from Kara Castronova, our wonderful correspondent and our great reporter, who was at the Justice Department for the president's really kind of historic speech.
Just a few years ago, this very building was at the center of the historic and unprecedented prosecution of then former President Donald Trump. Indicted under the watch of former President Biden and Attorney General Merrick Garland, Trump faced relentless legal battles from within these walls. But today, in a full circle moment, he stands here, not as a defendant, but as the 47th President of the United States. And in his remarks, he made clear that his administration is taking action to restore justice. Speaking from the Department of Justice, President Trump wasted no time addressing what he called the agency's recent corruption.
Unfortunately, in recent years, a corrupt group of hacks and radicals within the ranks of the American government obliterated the trust and goodwill built up over generations They weaponized the vast powers of our intelligence and law enforcement agencies to try and thwart the will of the American people.
To rebuild that trust, Trump mentioned his sweeping reforms.
On day one, I signed an executive order banning all government censorship. My administration stripped the security clearances of the disgraced intelligence agents who lied about Hunter Biden's laptop from hell. We revoked the clearances of deranged Jack Smith, Alvin Bragg, Letitia James, and the crooked law firms that aided their partisan persecutions. I pardoned hundreds of political prisoners who had been grossly mistreated.
It was an incredible moment of redemption for the 47th president, once prosecuted by this institution, now standing at its helm and vowing to clean house.
They spied on my campaign, launched one hoax and disinformation operation after another, broke the law on a colossal scale, persecuted my family, staff, and supporters, raided my home, Mar-a-Lago, and did everything within their power to prevent me from becoming the president of the United States.
For President Trump, today's speech was not just about policy, it was personal. Once the target of what many call a politically motivated persecution, he now stands as the leader of the very government entity that tried to take him down. Reporting from the Department of Justice for Lindell TV, I'm Kara Castronova.
Very well done, Kara. And it marks a very historic moment in Justice Department history and a turning point. Reminds me of the post-Watergate reforms that I participated in when I went to Washington the first time. And hopefully, and I'm certain, it's going to result in a much more, it's going to result in a Justice Department like we've always had and we deserve. One that treats everyone equally. No more two-tier justice, because two-tier justice is no justice at all, in any respect or in any way. So the other thing I wanted to point about Putin before we move from that subject is Putin always inserts something that sort of shows you that he's a real tyrant. Remember the first time I met him, it was shortly after President Bush had seen something in his eyes about God or something. And I just couldn't help but look at his eyes, and all I saw was a stone cold killer. And I told the president that. I enjoyed my few meetings with Putin. He's very intelligent. He's very charming, very nice, very. But you maybe because I've had so much experience dealing with killers, you can never forget that. So what happened here that reminds me of that? So he's on the verge of peace. I can understand why he wants to take Kursk. Why not get it? It leaves the little creep with nothing to negotiate with. What I don't understand is why he wants to denominate the soldiers their terrorists. That's horrible. And I hope that quietly they make it clear to him, if you do, then every one of your prisoners in Ukraine can be deemed a terrorist. How do you think their mothers and fathers are going to like that back in Russia, Vladimir? Let's hope we don't have to do that, and let's hope that's posturing, and let's hope that we get them back on the road to peace. But, if we don't, there's a time to get brutal with him. I don't mean brutal in terms of, the kinds of things he does. I mean brutal in terms of your approach. Crush his country. Put him in bankruptcy. China doesn't have the resources right now to bail him out. China's suffering mightily in their economy. They're trying to pull back. They don't want to have to support Russia much more. So he may be a bit on his own. We take sanctions and really pile it on him. How about we include some sanctions on the people that Biden let out, the ones who had bribed the Biden family? That might help too. But it's also time to let them know what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And if you treat the Ukrainian soldiers as terrorists, just because they came into your country, invaded it and took Kursk, well, damn, every one of your soldiers is a terrorist because you went into Ukraine and took territory that wasn't yours. And don't give me this crap, it's part of Russia. it hasn't been part of Russia for a very long time. And when it was part of Russia, it was part of the Soviet Union. So let's see. Let's see if I think you got a weekend to soften this, but not much more. Otherwise, the president's objective of saving lives is not going to be met. The Sudza problem, getting it back, is all the little crook. But the problem is straightening Putin's attitude out really has to go to us. So government shutdown. Schumer did a Schumer. He was one day ago dead set against it. It was the worst thing that could happen is to agree to this proposal by the Republicans. It would end the Republican. It was absolutely necessary to close the government down because you had to take a stand as a matter of principle. Then he heard the word principle, and that ended up screwing Schumer up completely. So now Schumer becomes, the leader of work with the Republicans not to shut the government down. And the reality is that he got the extra Democrat votes that made it possible to keep the government open. But he's now in deep trouble with a good many of his fellow Democrats in the House who think he's a traitor. Well, he is a traitor. I don't know. This one, he's like a traitor and helped us. Other ones, he's a traitor to his own people, the Jewish people. Tried to interfere in the Israeli election without any consequence. There should have been. His position of principle yesterday is different than his position of principle today. And in the latter part of his career, which had some great moments, he's really become a slime bucket. But now the Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader, would-be Speaker of the House, right, who comes from New York and is sort of subordinate to him in New York politics, had a really hard time not criticizing him today because it looks like a very large contingent of his delegation who are at some kind of a retreat are really very angry at Schumer. I mean, they wanted the government to shut down. Strangely, I think Schumer made the right decision for them because I think this is one where they would have taken the blame for the shutdown, where they've always escaped it and been able to push it on the Republicans. It was pretty hard to do it here, given the continuing resolution that Johnson has crafted, which does have a couple of good things in it, but not overboard. A little more military spending, a little less dependency spending, but not so appreciably that it isn't a reasonable compromise to keep the government going. And I may be wrong, but I do think he read the politics. I mean, Schumer read the politics of it right, but he's suffering mightily for it. Who were the Democrats that we got on that vote, or that Schumer gave us? I guess I know obviously Fetterman. He didn't give us Fetterman. Fetterman was there before Schumer.
Fetterman, Durbin, Cortez Masto.
Who? Cortez?
Cortez Masto. Catherine Cortez Masto is a senator from Nevada. Gillibrand, Margaret Wood Hassan, New Hampshire.
From New Hampshire, yeah.
Gary Peters.
Except for
Brian
except for
Chatson, Gene
Gillibrand, those
Shaheen.
are sort of Trump territories, places where you have a fairly strong Trump vote. And even in New York, Gillibrand would want to go with Schumer, support him. And also, although Trump, you can't call New York by any means Trump territory, he did get closer than any Republican since Ronald Reagan. So there would have been a backlash, I think, in New York had the government shut down.
Right. So those were the votes in favor. So again, Cortez Masto, Durbin, Fetterman, Gillibrand, Hassan, Peters from Michigan, Schatz of Hawaii, and Shaheen of New Hampshire. So you had both New Hampshire Democrats voting for it.
Well, New Hampshire is a very close state. I mean, it's actually a Republican state domestically, and it's a Democratic state on the federal level. There's a Republican governor, a Republican legislature.
Right.
and probably a state where you'd pay heavily for shutting down the government. Hochul met with the president today. Very hard to tell if anything was accomplished. They just basically said they had a very good meeting, and they discussed they discussed the Moynihan Station, which has been going on for 445 years. I was working on the Moynihan Station back when the Pilgrims came over, and some other nonsensical thing. The real issue here is the consumer tax that she has placed on just about all Republicans, the people, and that's a picture of her that goes way back. Or she stopped off in Palm Beach and got plastic surgery. You see it? Look at that face. That's not Hochul. Maybe Nancy Pelosi made a recommendation. When you share them on, I don't like Hochul much. I think she's a real doofus, but I love all people, and I do feel that sometimes, since I'm older, I can give advice. Governor Hochul, you don't want to end up with Pelosi with no original body parts on your face. Take it easy. And the consumer pricing, that tax that you've placed on, which begins at $9 just to go below 64th Street. It's a disaster. I mean, I've been in New York twice since you've done it, and they don't like you. And when the taxi drivers don't like you, see, they tell everybody. They tell everybody what a jerk you are. And then they make things up even. They even make things up like there could be like a very, very corrupt relationship, you and your husband, with the Buffalo Stadium that you've been spending all your time building and putting ridiculous amounts of our money into. And your husband's going to make a fortune because he's involved in the concessions. And they actually say that's a conflict. Can you imagine that, Governor Hochul? They say it's a conflict. Some people say it's even a bribe. They do. And then when you keep charging them $9, and I don't think you could, like, if you have to go back and forth delivering things from Upper Manhattan to Lower Manhattan like 4 times a day, I think you pay $9 each time. I have to check that. I mean, we've been gone since they put it in effect, right. But I was right on the border. My apartment is right on the border. And a lot of people say that the extra $300,000 that she paid for those COVID tests, that California didn't pay for the exact COVID tests and the exact amount, and then she got a $300,000 contribution from the pharmaceutical company. Some people say that. You know what they actually say, Ted? Could you believe it? A New York Democrat? They say it was a bribe. No, not Hochul. Not a local politician from the Democrat stinkhole. Not a chance. Yeah. I mean, and then she came out of Albany, Okay, almost everybody in Albany is corrupt, but not her. President's great at the way he deals with these people. Very nice. Hochul's a very nice lady.
He did say that today.
I've seen no evidence of that. Ever. I haven't seen evidence that she's nice or not nice. But I haven't seen any evidence of, or any brains. I basically think she's there to cash in on the stadium in Buffalo. And once that happens, goodbye, Hochul Pochul. Now, he was going to discuss with her something I am interested in, because I do love my former city and state. And this is something I spent as a young man. I spent a good deal of time in Weston, New York. Weston, New York is really just an extension of Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania is an extension of Western New York. So here's the map. Let me orient you toward that map. That's you see where you see Binghamton, and then you see Montrose. Okay, Binghamton is in New York, right over the border from Pennsylvania, and Montrose is in Pennsylvania, right over the border from New York. That line that you see is a pipeline. That pipeline would be taking gas, I think. I think it's a gas pipeline. Because in Montrose, there is a huge amount of natural gas and oil that is extracted by the process called fracking, which I am very familiar with because I used to represent Texas companies who do this and have for years been arguing that fracking should be done on the other side of the border as well. And then all those cities you see there that are starving and falling apart, they'd all be rich. Oh, not rich, but the whole problem for upstate New York has been we've had mostly Democratic governors. And when we had a Republican governor, Pataki, who did a lot to help New York, he wasn't able to really do everything because he had a crooked Democratic legislature. Crooked, they went to jail. This is not like, they haven't gone to jail yet. Like if I say that Pelosi and her husband screwed around with insider trading, they haven't gone to jail yet. So it's allegations but I mean, these are people who went to jail. They're the leader of the party in Albany went to jail for a long time. He could have been one of the. I mean, I had to deal with him. He was probably one of the most dishonest men I ever met. So, Pennsylvania, a Democratic state, does fracking, and it makes a fortune on it. Right above the line, there's just as much oil and gas, possibly more. It all starts way up, right near Syracuse. When my son was running for governor, he was very much in favor of opening that up and making what we call upstate New York rich. And everybody's afraid of the fracking and what it might do, and all the stupid liberals could cause an earthquake. They've been doing it in Texas for 50 years. Hasn't been an earthquake. Oh, the water could get polluted. So you know what I did? I'll find you the picture and we'll play it. I drank the water. I went up to the very top where the seam begins, and and some of the water spills out there. Right. I took a cup with the approval of Dr. Marin. I had a look at it. She said, perfectly fine, and I drank it. That is now 3 years ago. Now, it is true. Before that, I had a right arm, and now I'm like this. It did nothing but make me more energetic. I recommend the water. But in any event, because we need that pipeline. And the people who were going to do it have now backed out because Trump authorized it and Biden canceled it. Because Biden hates us. So he was trying to get Hochul to agree to it. I don't know what happened with that. So we'll try to find out. But what we really need, hopefully, in the next governor's election in New York, a governor who will do what a Democratic governor in Pennsylvania did. Governor Rendell opened Pennsylvania to fracking because he was more of a governor than a crooked meathead Democrat politician servant. He was a servant of the people. So we got to get somebody other than this extraordinarily limited person that we have as governor, who's going to say those places like Binghamton and Deposit and Sydney and Oneonta, everyone knows Cooperstown. That's the Baseball Hall of Fame. Stamford, Middleburg. Then it goes all the way up. You still got a lot of way to go to Syracuse. Rome, New York. There's a Rome, New York. There's a Utica, New York. People have been suffering since since Europe and China stole all our jobs. Just like in your state, Michigan, just like in Ohio, just like in Pennsylvania. But Pennsylvania made up for it with fracking. We could too. And no one knows it better than Donald J. Trump. We used to talk about this when he was a private citizen. He was a big proponent, helped me a lot with keeping nuclear power for New York. At Indian Point, made up 1/3 of the power for New York very cheaply. It also was a fabulous backstop against any kind of major shutdown. I only had, one or two as mayor, never had the whole city go down. I had Washington Heights go down. The last really big one was under Bloomberg. And he had Indian Point to bail him out of that. We don't have Indian Point now because it was closed after he said he would never close it by the governor who probably lies the most of our recent governors. And I'll let you figure out who that is, and we'll tell you later. There is a Trump tariff war going on. Did you know that? Before I show you how you properly conduct a tariff war, I want to tell you the tariff war now is on liquor. So the European Union has put a 50% tax on all U.S. whiskey. 50% tax on all U.S. whiskey. So Trump has said he's going to put a 200% tax on all European liquor. No more champagne, no more phony Bordeaux. Why do I say phony Bordeaux? Because you can make Bordeaux anywhere. It's really taking Cabernet Sauvignon grape and mixing it with 3 other grapes. There was I don't remember the exact date, but this is a great milestone in the history of wines. But there was a 1980 competition in Paris, and somebody slipped in a California Cabernet mixture. So a Cabernet mixture, and I've forgotten all the different grapes that you can put into a Bordeaux, but you can put in Cabernet Blanc, and you can put in all kinds of different ones, all kinds of different red grapes. And you, depending on how strong you want to make it or how weak you want to make it. So they make such things. They have for 30 years. They make such things in other parts of the world. They take this Cabernet Sauvignon grape and they mix it just the way they do in France. But you can't call it that because France has a law that they call it a terroir law. You name the wine for the territory it comes from. Now, we have a little something like that with the bourbon. Bourbon has to be in Kentucky. So Jack Daniels is not a bourbon because it's in Tennessee. Sorry, to me, it's a bourbon. It's the same thing. It has the same thing in it, but you can't call it a bourbon. Well, you can't call this a Bordeaux, but it is. So they had a test, a blind test. The California wine won. It was the #1 wine of the year, the best Bordeaux of the year. And then they unveiled it, and the French went crazy, cheating. This is not. No, from California, no. Oh, mon Dieu. They had to wake them all up. So I don't know, get rid of that Bordeaux crap. Now, it used to be you could pay a lot less money. And go ahead, you want to fight with me about wine? I'm an Italian, pal. I'll beat you on wine. I'm sorry. You just pay more. Now, if you want to get to like the 30-year-old Bordeaux and the one great harvest, then okay, all right. But now you're talking about, you got money like Musk. But we're just talking about just beyond just normal, but, fairly expert wine drinkers, just not in the multi-zillion dollar category. You got a lot of California wines that are a hell of a lot better than the French shit. It'd be a good chance. Give them a chance. And I'm telling you, you're going to go crazy on me now, some of you wineys, but Long Island and upstate New York wine, pretty damn good. The white wines almost competitive. I think the rosé just as good. Red wines take longer. But with a little boost like this, maybe we don't have to have those French wines. Yeah. Who wants French wine anyway? So he's going to put a 200% tariff on them. You know how fast they'll cave? Well, if you go to X now at 8, I'm going to tell you the real strategy of the tariff thing, which is working out really beautifully for us, despite the fact that we have people who are obsessively compulsive about tariffs, like the Wall Street Journal, and they can't see beyond, like the companies that are coming to America, like the toy companies now that are coming to America because they don't want to have to pay the tariff. That's exactly what he's trying to do. And then we'll show you how he discussed it with the Irish Taoiseach, and it'll show you how an American president should represent us. Well, we'll see it next week. And right now, go over to X, and we are going to continue with our explanation of the brilliant things that Donald Trump is doing that are being completely misinterpreted on purpose, but people are getting it now. God bless Israel. God bless Ukraine. God bless Iran. And God bless America.